Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here and choosing to spend your time engaging with real civic conversation. My name is Brianna, but you may know me better as the Recovered Republican, which you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Substack. But tonight's town hall is about transparency, accountability, and giving voters a chance to hear directly from the people who want to serve them. Our goal is simple: ask clear questions and get clear answers, and create a space for honest dialogue. We're not here for sound bites, we're here for substance. And with that, please welcome Blythe Potter.
Hi, how are
Hello.
you?
I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm managing.
Yes, I am sure you are very busy. How many events did you have today?
None. I worked.
Oh,
I had
well,
clients today, but it's not just work anymore. You're doing your normal work thing and then you're doing like campaign stuff in between. So, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we, dive in, I want to give you a moment to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, the work you've done, and what brings you to this race.
All right. My name is Blythe Potter, and I'm seeking the Democratic Party nomination for Secretary of State in Indiana. I am a mom, I'm a veteran, I'm a small business owner, and most importantly, I'm running for Indiana Secretary of State because our state and the Democratic Party need a new direction. First thing I want to do is make sure we're empowering Hoosier voters and giving them information going to the polls. I've been a municipal candidate twice. And both times I realized when I was door knocking and canvassing and talking to people, sorry, my daughter's having some struggles with a toy. There. Um, People had no idea there were elections coming up. So if that much of the population is part of the reason we have such low voter turnout, we need to make sure we're sending that information and not relying solely on candidates, county parties, 501c4s like League of Women Voters. Secretary of State should be working, in my opinion, with the county clerks to make sure that information is shared. And also, we need to modernize the systems that the office oversees. The primary job is overseeing elections, but the office also oversees securities, automobile transportation, organizational papers, but also the NBiz website where people go and get their papers for when they're running. No, that's the broken one. Sorry. And that part of it, the NBiz website, is quite a jumble. It is not organized well. There's a lot more information we could be using to make sure we're setting up our entrepreneurs for better success, and maybe answering some more questions on that website so they're not fumbling through it like my business partner and I had to. And what brings me here is this job is right up my alley. I've been in customer service in some capacity for 30 years. I've managed managers, I've managed people, I've managed organizations. And most importantly, I've done administrative work for over 20 years. And it really should just be a boring administrative job where we're maintaining, updating as necessary, and keeping data and documents secure. So, how do you advertise anything and tell people about something like the elections? You market it. I do that as a small business owner every day. So I think we could make some really big changes in a really short amount of time.
Well, thank you for that. But let's get into more of the issues a little bit. So, I've have a combination of different questions I've come up with and from people who've written them in. So, let's just start with, what concrete steps do you want to take in the first year to make voting easier and more accessible for Hoosiers?
So currently on the Secretary of State's website, you can go and look and see who's on your ballot, but it's very, very basic information. It's like office, name of the person, and party affiliation. That's it. You can also look up where your polling site and things are, but it's all in these different little pieces. So I want to organize that better, make it more comprehensive, not just on the digital form, but take that and turn it into an actual ballot book. I should back up a little bit. With all of the websites the office oversees, I want to start the first few months with feedback boxes. So people who are end users of the website who thought things like, like on InBiz, you can't change your login information, your email address. So making sure that's available to do and just seeing what the public thinks we need to switch it. So it's not all just like, oh, this is what I see. This is what we're going to do. Because everyone has a different perspective. So making sure that's accessible absolutely online, but we also need to make sure it's accessible for those of us who might be in information deserts. We still have about 10% of the state's population, which is over 600,000 residents with no internet access. So we'll make sure we're sending out information to registered voters. They can make sure their information is up to date. If they want to opt into a physical book, they can do so. If not, then they can just do it online. And we can use HAVA grants and things like that to help fund that. There will be money that we will figure out in the current budget to make those happen. And also make sure that they're ADA accessible or available in other languages. We need Braille, we will need likely Spanish and many other languages. So we almost need to make it overly inviting so that they almost have to intentionally ignore the fact that there's an election coming up. So we're not just hoping the algorithm tells us or we catch it on the news. We will better prepare all of our registered voters for what's happening with the elections.
Wonderful. Well, and you've already answered my next question about what,
Oh.
the frustratingly outdated systems and what you would
Yeah.
want to tackle first. But it sounds like you want to hear from business owners about what should be tackled first.
Well, really, anyone who uses the websites, it's not just business owners. So if you're doing administrative work for a small business and you're going to pay your sales tax or filing your sales tax for that month. There's another one that I'm totally blanking, or the withholding. If you're filing those, I think it needs to be more navigable and in better spots. I've used those websites for over 8 years, and I still have to try to figure out, okay, which one is the one where I go to make the payment? So anyone who's using them, like if you are a notary public, you would use that website to update your notary, or if you want to become one. How else might we use those? Campaign finance. Anyone could use that portal if they want to start seeing who's donating to whom, follow that money, make that easier to access, things like that. So it really is something, it's not just for business owners, it's not just for registered voters or people who intend to vote. It is for the general public so that they can access this information.
Wonderful. And I do want to remind people, because there's some new people coming in and out, that you can submit questions. So if you would like to submit questions, submit them in the chat, and we will get to them during this town hall. The next thing I wanted to get into is that you've emphasized restoring trust and ending no bid contracts. What specific
Mhm.
transparency measures would you like to implement to make the office more accountable to the public?
Well, first, I want to say I'm open to suggestions. Just because I see a need in transparency in some areas doesn't mean I'm covering all of that. Um, Again, everyone will have a different perspective, but so we want to start an independent audit. I want to give results to that, see what's been going on in the last 4+ years, give those out in real time. But with the contracts, if we need to get a bid for something, we need to make sure that it's publicly available. We need to make sure our unions know that it's there so that they can possibly bid on that, and give people a real opportunity to engage in government. And most of the time, that'll be with smaller businesses. That helps our local economies. And also owning our stuff as a candidate, as a politician, as an office. When we make mistakes, even though it's not fun, I've been trying to practice what I preach and making sure that I'm following up in real time with that. But I also want to lead the way for other politicians to do that. One of the unique things I think about the time we're in is we have such terrible people running the government, the Republicans, on the federal and state level. Like there's pretty much not much we could do worse. So if we mess up, it's a little bit easier because we're not Mike Braun, we're not Donald Trump, we're not Diego Morales. So just kind of starting back at square one and really treating this like a customer service job. Our tax dollars pay our politicians for a service, and that is to govern us fairly and make sure our quality of life and well-being is looked out for. And this is the perfect office to start off with that because it's nonpartisan. We're not making any hot button issues, legal or not legal. It's just making sure things are accessible, things are transparent, we can access our ballots. And then hopefully the other executives will take note and maybe we just change the way people work in public offices.
Thank you. And then I know you were kind of touching on this earlier. County clerks are on the front lines of the election administration. What new supports or resources would you like to provide them to help them run elections more efficiently?
First, we would need to see what they need. Really the coolest thing about this. Going to all of the counties and talking to some of the county clerks and some of the people who've worked with the election boards and things. Every county office has different needs. And some of that is accountability. Maybe we need to address some issues that have happened in the past that maybe weren't kosher. Um, Maybe they need more election machines. Maybe they need funding for poll workers. It's like every county is going to need something so different. So, really making sure that our office is listening and responding to that. HAVA grants, the Help Americans Vote Act. They have grants, federal grants that help with nonpartisan voter information and education. And I know at one point in time, places like Morgan County and Monroe County were getting those, and I think those have stopped with Diego. So I want to make sure they're funded and have the resources that they need to have elections and staff that office. So I think that needs to just be a conversation with what can the Secretary of State help with? Is that something that maybe need help from the county level with funding? I don't know how all of that works. But being an advocate for them and being support.
Do you feel like I feel like personally there are people on both sides of the aisle that are concerned about election security for a variety of reasons, and it looks
Mhm.
different on each side of the aisle, but it still exists.
Yeah.
Do you feel there is anything you would like to do that would help make our elections safer?
Yes. So just the feedback I've heard on the trail, some people think election security means making sure there aren't people preventing them from voting or intimidating them, like perhaps if ICE is there or people there with weapons, things like that. Some people may think election security is making sure my vote is counted properly and no, it's going the places it needs to go. So that looks a little different for everybody, but by and large, as a state and as a country, our elections are safe. Most people don't understand how the elections work and how poll working works. So just offering that information, maybe we have some live demonstrations that we can have on the web, but also in person so people can see how these machines work. We have the information up, maybe a YouTube video or things on the website. Many people don't know that there's an inspector at each site, but there's usually an even number of Republicans and Democrats. Violet, can you please be a little bit more quiet for me? So if you've got 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats doing the same thing, and I've worked the polls, it's very easy. People work very well together. So generally speaking, we have safe elections, but there's so much noise happening and we don't know how it actually works. So just I think informing the public will help with that.
Thank you. And we do have some questions in the chat. This one is a little bit fun, but she brings up a good point. Diego has hired family members. How do you feel about the Secretary of State? Should they be hiring family members? How should a hiring process maybe look for if you were in the office?
I think just blanket because there have been so many concerns and troubles with that. We need to just not hire family members. And the jobs need to be made public when they are open and really take that seriously when we're looking for people to work in the office. Um, and again, I think that goes back to listening to the public a little bit too. Like, what will make people feel better about the staff? Um, maybe we keep some of the staff. I don't know. I know there are people who work within that office that love their jobs. They've worked there for 20, 30 years. They may not like what Diego is doing, but by and large, we don't give enough credit to our state employees in the Secretary of State's office and otherwise because we have a lot of really intense situations happening that people aren't always comfortable with, but they are there to do a job for our state. So, um, not hiring family members, but making sure that we're hiring the correct people and not doing, get rid of the cronyism too, not just the nepotism, but we need to get rid of the cronyism.
All right. And then we also still have another question. What specific steps would you take as Secretary of State to increase civic engagement and make voting more accessible for working families, seniors, and young voters in the communities like Johnson County?
So I think the ballot book is a great place to start. Thank you, Sod. And Nikki, I saw your comment too. I think that might be counted as cronyism, but we'll have a conversation. Um, Making sure the county clerks have information to hand out to their municipal candidates and people on the local level. I'm a big proponent of municipal candidates. I think they're more important than just about any other office because they hold the purse strings and get you accessibility in your town. So making sure that information is available for them, they know what the resources are. But sometimes maybe that just looks like figuring out what counties need. Like I know Johnson County, we don't have handicap accessible voting to my knowledge. I've never been in a polling place where I could see something that was easy for a wheelchair to go up to, or maybe someone that needs a steadier base than the tables that we have if they have shaky hands or something. So that's a little bit of feedback I've heard, but um, again, I think each community is going to be so unique that we need to make sure we're listening to what those needs are. But for seniors, what we're going to pretend that Blythe gets her way. Okay. I would prefer Hoosier voters get to decide on what happens here. Violet, please, can you just go like by the table? Sorry. Fun part of parenting. Um, I don't even know what I was talking about.
Seniors.
Oh, yes, seniors. Thank you. If it were up to me, we'd work with the state legislature, get ballot initiatives started. And the first thing we would put on the ballot is maybe we have opt-in absentee ballots. So you can say, Brianna, you're going to opt in to get an absentee ballot until the day you move or die. You will always get an absentee ballot delivered to your mailbox. You don't have to beg and plead for it. You don't have to have an excuse. So if you're working 3 jobs, if you're going to be traveling, maybe you're homebound, you're a senior citizen and you don't want to have to go to the polling site, you can vote from home. You have your ballot book. You don't have to do anything. Maybe it looks like making sure you know about our travel boards where people can come to your location, or maybe we have people helping you physically get to the polling sites if that's what you want. But again, I think that's something we need to listen to the public on too in some capacity, just making sure that we're paying attention because a lot of when we went from voting locations to vote centers in some counties, we've made it harder for people to get physically to the polls if they don't have cars. So I think it's going to be situational. It's pretty incredible how different every county is, not just with the landscape, the physical landscape, but also where the locations are and the ease or not to get to those sites.
Absolutely. It looks very different. I've lived in many different parts of the state, and you're absolutely correct. We do have another comment question. Oh, nope, that's not the right one. Where'd it go? There it is. All right. So, they want to know your plans to address work environment in the Secretary of State's office.
Oh, I bet that, I mean, this is actually right up my alley too. So I have a master's of business administration and I've studied organizational leadership and been in leadership in some capacity for a long time. So the first thing we would do is just talk to the people who currently work there. What's the culture like? Are they happy? Are their needs being met? I'm going to guess that they're probably not being met. So what do we need to fix that? Um, and how can we make that function better? And if we have, if we have some people who aren't compatible or maybe not interested in the job anymore, then we take that further. Um, I think just with some of the recent things, for instance, when the filing paperwork got messed up with the notaries, making sure everyone on staff at the Secretary of State's office is a notary. That way we don't have to worry about deputizing them. Won't have to worry about timestamps. I'd also like to extend that to our county clerks too. I would love for all county clerks offices to have a notary on staff. If we have documents that have to be notarized to run for office or be a delegate, whatever that is, you shouldn't have to go to 3 locations to get that notarized. But again, I think that's going to be situational. Get in there and really see what the culture is like. Take a look at the employee handbook, see if that is up to par and up to date. I'm going to guess that probably isn't either. But really just make it an environment that still serves the public in a nonpartisan way and in an impartial way, but is also a safe work environment because politics can sometimes be really uncomfortable. So,
Absolutely, politics can be uncomfortable. I think that we are all increasingly understanding that. But just as a reminder, everyone, you can always submit a question for Blythe in the comments, or if you want to submit it anonymously, we do have a Google form that we've also put into the chat. But let's talk about the guidebook here.
Mhm.
What you've got the proposed statewide voter guidebook. It sounds like you want more information in it for people to make more informed decisions
Mhm.
maybe for the elections. What information do you want to have in there? How do you make sure it reaches every Hoosier? I know we've talked about it a little bit, but
Mhm.
is there anything more you would like to say?
So there are a lot of different ways we can go about that. I brainstormed that a little bit. The logistics would depend on a lot of other things, but just off the cuff from what I thought about, I'd like for people to be able to have the most comprehensive access to how our elections work. From how do you get involved with your local party? What's the Democratic Party platform? What is the Republican Party platform? What's the Libertarian Party platform? How do you um, why are there not independents on our ballot? How do you become an independent candidate? Really getting people involved in that process. Where again, we're in such a unique time where, and I think we saw with our recent primaries with the increased voter turnout, which also I think speaks to the work we have been doing. And I know you and I are both part of that across the state the last few years. Um, Things are bad enough that people are paying attention in ways they haven't before. So let's make sure that they don't just know how to vote in November. How do they become a precinct chair? What is a precinct chair? Why are they important? What is the job of that? What is a delegate? Why is that important? What's a township trustee? So they can know what's available to run for. They know who to contact to do that. We can have information about every county party on all political sides. And when candidates are signing up, I would really love to have space for the candidates to put some nonpartisan, impartial information about themselves as well. It would be limited. There would be guides to it, like, let's say, for example, 500 to 700 characters of why I'm running for Secretary of State. So there's less research being done. But also, on top of that, we can have websites and social media handles for candidates. That's one of the things I found being involved with the local party as a PC, but also a candidate, is our Republican opponents never had anything publicly available. They didn't answer the League of Women Voters questionnaires. They aren't on Ballotpedia because they didn't think they had to. They don't have to be responsive to us. So, really making sure that candidates have the opportunity to get in front of every voter who could vote for them. That gets some of the money out of politics. It takes some of the work off of our PCs, our candidates, our county parties, because everyone has it. So maybe we're sending less flyers and things too. But it also, I think it can hold people more accountable as well. So if people decide, I'm not going to fill that out, we'll just put candidate chose not to respond. And I think that speaks volumes too. So anything we need to know about, where's their local polling place? How do you get an absentee ballot? Just civics 101, but at the palm and on your phone or accessible on your hands.
Maybe you don't have to go deep diving into the website to find the information you want.
Yeah, it's most of these websites were done in the late 90s, early 2000s.
They're not great.
They're
They're
not
just
great.
not
They're
great.
not great.
Well, switching gears just a little bit. You've served in Iraq. You mentioned that on a
Mhm.
personal security detail. How has that experience shaped your leadership style and your approach to public service?
Yes, and I want to talk about that a little bit too, because people think I just was a bodyguard and did nothing else. I've had people say, "Well, that's not leadership. You were just a bodyguard." There's a little bit more to it. I was a gunner. I was a 249 and 50 cal gunner. I was a lead truck driver, and we did night watch, things like that. So there's a lot of accountability to that, making sure weapons and things are clean and accounted for. I do want to say, for anyone who is concerned, I do not believe we should have been in Iraq. I don't believe we should be in Iran. I don't believe we should. I think we need to make sure everyone is pulling out of Gaza and Palestine, and that we just end the wars in that part of the world. Well, everywhere, preferably, but those are the ones we're currently helping fund. Um, that type of leadership style really, I don't know how to say this without being inappropriate. I was raised in a Republican family, and authority in that type of environment was always, "You do as I say, not as I do. You shut your mouth and you do what you're told." And being raised in Indiana, I was very good at doing that. That's also very traumatic, and not an ideal situation to live or work or go to school in. And the military was very similar to that. So initially, I would say my leadership style wasn't the kindest because I did what I was modeled. But I also learned from that. I didn't like being treated that way as someone who was part of a chain of command. And I've learned better ways to do that and to communicate better. So it's taught me how to be a what a bad leader looks like, and how not communicating or maybe not having input from people in your chain of command does really hurt the organization or the group as a whole. Um, but, other life I'm 44 years old, and that was and I got home in 2006, so a lot has changed since then, and I have evolved a lot as a leader. I prefer nonviolent communication, I like input, and I think you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if I have 5 people working under me and not all 5 of those people know how to do one another's jobs if they need to, or if someone else needs help, I'm doing something wrong. So just making sure people are informed and we share the baton, um, and we help people grow as they want to grow.
I love that. I love growing when people grow. But we have a Clay County comment, and she's trying to get involved, or he is trying to get involved locally in deep red counties. People are skeptical of Democrats before we even open our mouths. I wouldn't say skeptical. I would say they think we're crazy.
Yep.
What is the message you think works best for rebuilding trust around elections and public service?
It is gonna be different everywhere. So and I hear you. It's similar in Johnson County. We have 0 Democrats elected in the county, and people often do think I'm crazy. So I just try to be normal. Michael, if you were born and raised here, you know what it means to live there, and to feel the way you feel there, and I can promise you most of the Republicans feel that way. It's maybe misguided. So try to find the common grounds. Just, if let's pretend you're door knocking, introduce yourself, and then "Look, I would love to hear what you think about our current state of politics. What are your worries? What are your concerns?" I can promise you most of the time those worries are going to be the same. Now, if they start blaming Democrats on everything, it's probably best to just be like, well, we do have a Republican supermajority. How do you think we could fix that? Try to bring it back to I would love to find a way where we decide that human rights are these basic things that are non-negotiable and nonpartisan that we should all be agreeing upon. Um, but until we get to that point, I think just trying to find common ground, and if it starts to get hostile, just be like, okay, thanks for your conversation. I think it's different with everybody, but um,
I think that's good
yeah,
advice. Honestly,
it's hard to rebuild trust.
it is, especially when Indiana has been really good at propaganda against Democrats and kind of teaching us that it's like, oh, no Democrats exist here. So it's kind of fighting back
Yeah.
against that narrative and people speaking up too.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Well,
no, go ahead.
Um, I think with that though, what we have a and I'm gonna say we because I am part of the Democratic Party, so I will own any faults we have. Historically, though, we have been harmed by decisions made by Democrats. Now, most of that I would like to think is on the federal level, but because that's what we hear about and see the most, we automatically assume that's happening in our backyards too. And the way we rebuild trust is be consistent. We stand our ground. We be, dude, we stand our ground. But the consistency part I think is important. We still continue to engage. We still continue to try to find common ground and to make sure that we're supporting our communities, whatever that may look like. But I think recognizing that we are not perfect. This party does need to change, and we need to evolve the way we do campaign and running the government.
Absolutely. So we do have another question, and thank you, Michael, for that question. If you have a question, you can put them in the chats. But should we automatically mail ballots to voters? Oh, I like that idea.
Hi, Ryan. I think we should be able to opt into it. I don't think we should have to request it every time there's an election coming up. I would love that. Other states do that, but I'm going to divert to the voters. Again, I want to work with the legislature. Let's get citizen-led ballot initiatives. Let's put that on the ballot. Do we automatically send everybody a ballot book with an absentee ballot like they do in other states? Put it on the ballot. If Hoosiers say yes, then we do it. If they say no, then we don't. That way, we're not blaming a party. We're not gonna be like, oh, well, Blythe did this and this is stupid. Nope. We all voted on this. We all had the opportunity to have a say. So I think it would be nice to do that. I think that would save a lot, well, save a lot of resources doing that. And more people, I think, would vote, which we saw in 2020. But that's subjective and not everyone will agree with that.
That is true. But we do have some more questions. Indiana voters are losing trust not just in elections, but in information itself. Between AI generated depictions, fake accounts, disinformation campaigns, and coordinated online manipulation, the next generation of election integrity is digital integrity. As Secretary of State, what steps would you take to protect Hoosiers from large scale digital manipulation while still protecting free speech and privacy rights?
That is a really good question. And fun fact, Corey and I went to college together. Chirp, chirp. I don't, I think I have questions about this, Corey, because the social media aspect of it is not something I would be able to control as Secretary of State because that's coming from companies and things like that. So I think just making sure that we have spaces on the website for fact finding. You know, maybe we link different outside websites that they can put things in, like Snopes or something like that, or maybe we have a portal where people can like submit things like, hey, this is what I've seen. Is this true or false? And then maybe we have someone that goes through and looks for it, and then we put information out. Here are multiple sources to say this is true or false. Here is why. I don't know exactly what that would look like, and that sounds like something I would need to phone a friend. Maybe Corey, you have ideas for that. But protecting free speech is very important, and privacy. I can touch on that because recently Diego Morales gave the Department of Justice our voter data, which included Social Security information and our driver's license information. The state already sells our data to the tune of $12 million or more a year. And I suspect the Secretary of State's office also sells business when people file for LLCs and things. I think they sell that data too because I get spammed with it. I would like to cut that off. That way we are making sure we aren't selling Hoosiers data. I mean, I guess if you want to opt into it and sell it, you can. I think we should get some kickback on that. But protecting our data going forward after all of the things DOJ has done and giving that data to the Department of Justice, I'd like to find a partner with a company to help protect the data of any Hoosier who was breached in that.
Yeah, there's so much spam. I think they do because I had an LLC years ago and I still get calls.
I
Still.
believe it. I believe it. I
But we
believe
do.
it. And the do not call list doesn't matter anymore.
No, not really. But we do have some questions in the Google form as well. So people who support your opponent claim that you lack bipartisan appeal to win the race. What do you say to this?
They are wrong. I actually think I have more bipartisan appeal. And I will tell you why. I have lived here for 44 years. I live currently in a rural red area. I grew up in a rural red area. I grew up in a Republican home. So I do know what it means to be in a community that identifies as Republican. I know what it means to not trust Democrats. And the thing that I heard the most growing up, and I hear it to this day, is we vote for the lesser of two evils. People don't trust Democrats because oftentimes we will take the same money as Republicans when we're running for office and then vote the same way that the Republicans do on the flip side once we're elected. that makes us not trustworthy. That is something we will have to earn trust back for. I very much think my platform and the way I approach things, I am able to communicate with people. I respond to people. I answer people's questions, and there's nothing inherently partisan about anything that I want to do. And it does accept public input. So I think I am actually more appealing, not just to people who are consider themselves Republicans or libertarians or independents, but most importantly, the people who are speaking the loudest are the ones who are not voting. That is our largest voting base, so are non-voters. And I think I will resonate with them more than my opponent will.
All right. An- Another one from the Google form. The Secretary of State position seems to like it revolves around customer service. We kind of touched on this a little bit already, but what level of service do you think Hoosiers deserve, and how do you plan on meeting their expectations?
That is a good question. So maybe you know how after you take a class or a webinar or seminar or something, you can put a feedback form on. Maybe we start offering feedback forms. We don't currently, and you and I know this, we've been calling our reps and emailing and all the things for what feels like decades now, but it's, you know, steadily for a year and a half. We don't have a responsive set of politicians by and large. Our Republicans are not responding to us. So I want to be responsive. And that doesn't necessarily mean it will be me personally, but the office needs to be responsive. If something doesn't seem like it's going well or needs to be updated or needs to be addressed, we need to respond to it. If there's a clerk in a county who's doing something that perhaps they shouldn't be doing, the Secretary of State doesn't need to just brush it off under the rug. I have heard situations of that happening with Diego. Um, so really just being available to answer questions. And honestly, I think if we get the infrastructure of our websites up to where it needs to be, a lot of that customer service will just be done because they're going to have the resources there for them. So I think most of it will just be making sure people have access to the questions that they need answered on the websites.
All right. And kind of going back to the previous question a bit, you know, what would you say to people who have concerns about your Republican upbringing?
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I am here for questions. Um, so I'm 44. I did not grow up with the internet. We didn't have cell phones. So most of my news and my opinions were formed in my friend group or my family or the churches we went to. And it wasn't until I left for Iraq in 2005 and I got home in 2006 and I had 90 days to find my own health insurance. And it was very alarming because to me, I was like, well, at this time, I was still in the military. Why do I not get health insurance? And back then, you didn't get to stay on your parents' health insurance until you were 26. Well, how old was I? 23 or something. But I had also at that point in my life said that people shouldn't be living off of the government. Well, do you know that the Department of Defense is the largest thing that our taxes go to? So I was living off the government as a military person who was deployed because I was solely paid by tax dollars. So that was like a big smack in the face to me when I realized, oh, I'm I'm that person that we talked about who now needs help. It's been a long time to deprogram. The older I get, the more progressive I get. But I like that I can understand what other people might be feeling right now or maybe have been over the last decade with Donald Trump in office because we've had to be confronted with the things that we thought were true, and unlearning those things.
Absolutely. We do have some more questions in the comments for you. Many Hoosiers feel disconnected from the state government. How would your office improve communication and transparencies with everyday residents?
Hi, Saad. We touched on this before, just making sure information's available if we're going to get bids on something or if we have a job or we're trying to get more machines or election machines, whatever that is, we make sure the public knows about it. Maybe we make sure the papers know and we put it on the website. When we need bids, we can have those posted publicly as well, and we can do that in real time. And even when we're deciding the bidding process, maybe we have more town halls or public forums. I think Diego did that recently because they were trying to change. Oh, now I'm totally forgetting what they were trying to. There were two things they were trying to change, but in any event, doing more of that, being out in the community, um, and owning our stuff. When we mess up, if we make a mistake, if we need to go back and correct something, we just own it. And I think oftentimes that's the easiest way to build trust with people is, we are all human. We're going to make mistakes. We need to take feedback. We need to correct course, and try not to repeat it.
And this is another question. Do you think there should be an Office of Digital Integrity?
I think that would be really cool. It sounds neat. And I think we've talked about this a little bit, Corey. I would love that, but I also have more questions because that is not in my wheelhouse. But do you mean with how we're getting news, or do you mean like integrity within the office or what we're putting out in digital? I have questions, but yeah, because it kind of sounds neat.
I think this kind of goes with that question a little bit while he's taken time to respond. You've spoken about wanting to restore honor to the office. What does that mean in practical terms?
Yeah, I think it's doing the job we're supposed to do, being accountable to the public, being conscious of how we're spending public dollars within our budget, and not buying ourselves cars, traveling on your dimes, the things that we've seen our elected officials in the Republican side. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Do you want me to take it from you? Okay. We have a wrinkly old balloon. But I think it's just making ethical decisions. Like it really should be that easy, but doing the job well and being transparent.
I agree. And Corey says to follow up, protecting election integrity is what he is referring to.
Yes, so at least in Johnson County, and I'm pretty sure most counties, our voting machines are not connected to the internet. So I think I probably still have more questions, but yes, if that is something the public feels like they need to have to make sure that they understand those processes and how that does work, because they are connected to one another, the machines, the iPads or whatever they're using, but it's not necessarily connected to the internet.
All right. And then we have somebody who has a friend who is a delegate who would love to hear you discuss the genocide in Palestine, conflicts in Lebanon, Iran, recent military foreign actions, and the current rise of Islamophobia.
I do believe it is a genocide in Palestine. I am anti-war, and I know I'm saying that as an Army veteran. I've had a lot of paradigm shifts in my life. I see things very differently, and human rights, in my opinion, are non-negotiable, whether it's in America or anywhere else. I believe human rights are safe food, safe air, safe water, safe shelter, safe education, safe healthcare, safe environments, and safe government. And I don't understand how that can be partisan. Well, I do. It's all about money. Money and power has gotten us here. I hope that answers your question. I would love to not be in any wars anywhere.
That is fair. Corey is wanting to know, he's talking again about the AI, fake accounts, coordinated disinformation campaign shaping what voters believe before they even reach the ballot box. Would you support creating an Indian Office of Digital Integrity connected to the Secretary of State office to help address those emerging threats while protecting civil liberties and lawful autonomy? Anomaly. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. So I think I'm tracking better. So It's Friday. Um, I think that would kind of tie into what I said earlier, like maybe we have a space to um, submit things that we might think are disinformation or might seem sketchy so we can find out the sources of that, like Snopes, but maybe for Indiana politics. So if that is what you're talking about, yes, I think that could be really cool because we see a lot of that. We see misinformation in this race all the time. I learn a new rumor and lie about myself almost every single day. So it would be really neat to have a space where people could put concerns and things like that and like populate an answer. But um, I still think that it would be something we would need to open up for public comment so that people understand what that looks like, where that should go, and how that would function, because that is still that kind of hurts my brain. I wouldn't know how to implement that, but it does sound like it's if it's enough of a concern that enough people need that, then we should do something like that.
And he said that he is referring to at state and at federal level, guess.
Okay. Ooh, that would be I don't know how well we would be able to do with the federal thing, but I definitely we should probably have our own town hall, Corey, so that we can talk about what that looks like because I have a lot of questions.
All right. And then from Nikki, if you decide to let go his overpaid family members, meaning Diego Morales, do you have any ideas of how you would reallocate the funds to help improve the Secretary of State's office? If you need to get in the office to have a better idea of what to do, that is fair.
No, I every anyone who works in any sector needs to be making a living wage. I'm not saying that we just make, we skimp people's salaries, but we certainly don't need to be paying his brother-in-law hundreds of dollars a year. So that money I think, could slide over into whatever we need to do to update the websites, get our ballot book going, making sure that county clerks have those resources. Um, that will a lot of that information will have to come from the audit to see where money has actually been going. Yes, honey. We'll be done in just a little bit, okay? Daddy's done. Um, I seriously doubt his family would stay working there. I don't think that would even be a thing.
I would be very surprised. Um, but let's switch gears just a little bit. What do you say to people who say you can't fundraise sufficiently to win in November?
I say, yes, I can. And also, there is absolutely nothing my campaign is lacking that my opponent has. Our website is better, our platform is better, our social media is better, our footprint is better, our responsiveness is better. We are doing things differently. And the entire goal of this is one, to show that we can do this. We've seen it happen across the country. Violet, I need you to stop. Two, we need to be able to have a standard that is attainable going forward. If you are going to tell me or anybody else that you're going into a primary that you have to have $3 million in order to be competitive in November, you will have no candidates for the rest of time, more than likely, because most people cannot do that. Most of us do not have billionaires in our Rolodex. We a lot of the time, people don't donate because they're going to wait to see what happens with the convention, or they know such and such family members, so they're going to donate to them. But I will tell you, we've been using grassroots analytics for quite a while, and my opponent recently started using that as well. So there are a lot of things our campaign is doing right that they are um, also adopting. So I will be able to raise the money in November. We will continue to fundraise. I know we need money, but I also know that we can do this better. We also have a network that we've been working with organizers across the state. I'm on the periphery of the Indiana Rules Summit. We've been learning from people and organizers in Virginia and Philadelphia and elsewhere around the country who've had really good success activating and motivating and engaging our rural communities. And as someone who lives and comes from a rural community, I have never seen You okay? All right. An alarm went off on my phone. I have never seen a politician in Indiana who comes from a rural community who actually treats us like we are normal human beings and not thinking, oh, what do these people in the sticks actually need? Do they really need another school? Like we get treated like we are different citizens. And there's no amount of money that can replace connecting with voters, and I think that's what's really important. We've worked really hard to make sure we have precinct committee people all over the state in every county. We're going to utilize those precinct committee people. I am a precinct committee person and I have been for several years. So I have been doing this work in my community. It's being replicated around the state. And we will go forward and make sure that not only are we raising money, but that we're engaging our communities.
Wonderful. But there's been a lot of things happening in the Republican Party recently. What do you think about some of the top Republicans calling for Diego Morales to suspend his reelection campaign? Maybe some people would say they're trying to push him out of the campaign even.
It is too little too late, Republicans. You nominated this bozo who illegally voted, who got fired from the office, who had sexual assault allegation. You know he is corrupt AF. You have done nothing about it until 2 days ago. You now have a problem with Diego when you have bolstered him and supported him and not held him accountable for years. You are all the problem. I don't give a crap what they think about his campaign. I don't care who's the nominee. They're all complicit in where we are right now in Indiana, as far as I'm concerned, and none of them are qualified candidates.
I don't understand how they elected him in the first place.
Because he will do their bidding. He got the money from the people he wanted the money from. He is responding to his donors, and he's doing exactly what the party establishment and the Republican Party want him to do.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I think Republicans will resonate with me, because while I do respect the Democratic establishment, I also am very much an outsider and know that we need to evolve the way politics works. That is a nonpartisan issue. Most people do not want politics as usual anymore.
Fair. All right. What are your thoughts on party leaders giving money to their preferred candidates during the primary? They personally think it's unfairly tips the scales.
It is quite interesting because the same people who are saying, well, you don't have enough money, are often hosting fundraisers for my opponent. And I don't know what to say to that, because part of me understands and recognizes that we are all voters as well. We are all Democrats as well, and we all have usually preferred candidates, and we should be able to support said candidates. However, there has been nothing fair about this race. I announced in May of 2025. In June, I started contacting every previous delegate and every county party chair and the state central committee. And to date, I still have county parties who refuse to speak with me or tell me when their party meetings are so I can come and meet their people. I've even had county party chairs say, you don't need to come here. We only have 6 delegates. So a lot of the counties, when I visit them, I had to make my own events or use my network and people to help me host events. So going forward, I think we need to be paying more attention to the bylaws in the Democratic Party and be treating candidates fairly, even if you don't like us.
Makes sense. We have another question in the chat. I know the primaries have been talked a lot about lately. 80% of Democrats I know had to vote in a Republican primary just to get a say in local elections because there wasn't a single Democrat running. I know ranked choice voting is outlawed, but could we do an open jungle primaries for the county levels or below? I don't know what would work, but a lot of Dems don't get a say in their local politics if they vote in their own primary.
I hear you. And that has happened here in Johnson County too. We literally have towns in the county historically who have zero Democrats to vote for. So they're forced to either pull a Republican ballot and not vote, or pull a Republican ballot and vote for them, or just not vote at all. And I'll divert to my cat's clawing me. I'll divert to what I said before. I want to work with the state legislature so we can get citizen-led ballot initiatives, and this is something I would like to put on a ballot. And when I say that, when we put things on the ballot like that, what states do when they have ballot books is, in those ballot books, if there's a referendum or something we're voting on, it's going to break it down for you. It's very comprehensive. It'll tell you what the bill or law would be. It'll tell you in layman's terms, stop, Gray. It'll tell you in layman's terms what that is. It'll give you pros with sources, cons with sources. So you have more than enough information to make a decision for yourself. And that is something I feel very strongly in this. I would love to have jungle primaries. I don't disagree. If I get to vote for a Libertarian, Democrat, Republican, and Independent in November, but there were multiple people running in the primaries in May, I would like to have us that. And I don't know what that looks like, because I also would like to be able to be involved in my party of choice without having to register or pay dues. Um, I don't know if that works in other states like that, but I do like the idea. And I think this is a bigger conversation that we need to have with our voting base, because I do think that would get more people involved in elections. And again, I think it could strengthen all parties if we are having real options about who is on our ballot and having real information about it. I think we make better, smarter choice to future. And I think candidates are going to being so garbage. Republicans get away with so much because we are so disenfranchised. We don't have information. They are very good at lying and gaslighting. Like, I'm kind of spiraling here, but I mean, that's pretty much all Republican politics is gaslighting. I confronted Jefferson Shreve, my congressman, last year after a parade, and he had voted some very poorly on some bills that affected veterans. He was voting to get rid of Medicare, and all four, all five of my living parents they're all retired. They're in their 70s. So it hits really close to home to have to worry about them not having health insurance. So I was like, Representative Shreve, like, what are we going to do? Like, how could you be voting for this and you're hurting veterans, you're hurting seniors? And he goes, oh, I've never voted against veterans. I love veterans. And Bria, I was like, I think I just did one of those things because I knew I was right. I had seen those bills. I had seen how he voted, but he said it so nicely and straight face. He looked me in the eye, and I was like, I didn't even know what to say. So I did go home and verified my facts and emailed them with those sources, and I never got a call back. But they gaslight us, and we need to make it harder for them to do that and get away with it.
Sounds like we need the Snopes for Indiana. That's what it sounds like then.
Right?
But I think that's a really good idea, and I think that should definitely happen. But we are running out of time, so I wanted to ask you if there is something that you want the voters to know that we haven't gotten to, or just something that you want them to remember.
Yeah. Be objective. Look at both candidates. Um, they are lying to you when they say that you need name and money. A name can be made overnight. If I got the same media attention, which I've had interviews that have gotten killed. So there is gatekeeping happening with this campaign, and we are still getting a lot of momentum. Be objective about it. We need to remember that we're not just voting for an office for this year. We're voting for an office for 4 years, and we need to be able to have something sustainable for the Democratic Party to continue on going forward. My plan is to help party build as well as bring integrity back into Indiana politics and make voting easier. And I think we're on a really good path of doing that. So and if you have questions, if you hear something that sounds off, or if you hear a rumor or something you want clarified, I am an open book. I'm generally very good about getting back to people quickly. So please come to me first before sharing it, because there is a lot of misinformation floating around there. And I love this state. I have good intentions. I do have the skill set. I am the most qualified for this job. I do have the best platform for this job. And I know we can make some really good changes with what we have.
Well, thank you. Where can people get a hold of you if they do want to reach out?
My website is blythepotter.com. All of my social media handles are on there. My email address is there. My cell phone is on there. So you can call, text, email, DM, whatever. Reach out anytime.
Well, thank you, Blythe. Thank you, and
Thank
thank you to
you.
every. Oh, you're welcome. But thank you for to everyone who actually joined us tonight. Democracy works best when we all show up and ask questions and expect real answers. So I appreciate everyone's time, your attention, and your commitment to staying engaged. Please remember to verify all election information and with trusted sources and make a plan to vote in the upcoming elections. Everyone have a safe night and wonderful, safe weekend. Thank you again for joining us. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye.